Welcome, mental health family. It's so good to see all of you here today. It's good to be back. We took a nice long summer break and just did a reset for everything. And so me and Dr. Whyte are very excited to be here with you. Welcome, Dr. Whyte. And as many of you can see, we have a special guest, and I'm going to introduce him here in just a moment. But
good to be back, Mr. Atonte.
When we had our conversation today, I was like, man, I haven't talked to you like all summer. So it was good to catch up, but it's good to be just back here with everyone. I know people are jumping on, they're seeing the reminder pop up on their screen, and they're just jumping on. Want to say a special welcome to, of course, Clint. Always good to see you, but Clint, I have to tell you, somebody beat you. We're not the first one today.
I must confess, I'm a little disappointed in you, Clint.
This is our third season, Clint. You are here, so we're good to see you. I think Agnes, I hope I'm saying it right, was the first person. And please put in the chat where you are viewing from, Clint. We know you're in Texas.
Longhorn. What is it? Something long? Longview, Texas.
Longview, Texas. Yeah.
Good to see you, Clint. And of course, Agnes, we're welcome as well. We see Michelle.
Yes, Michelle is here. So we are just thankful for all of you being here. Looks like we have Deborah hailing as well. Please, Deborah, let us know where you are watching from. Dr. Whyte, it's just so good. I can't believe that this is our third season of Mental Health Monday. Sometimes in my Facebook memory, it tells me like previous programs that we've done over the last few years, and it's always just good to see how much topics we've covered, and just how long we've been able to be doing this. And I'm just very thankful.
Absolutely. When you're watching shows, usually seasons have themes, but one of the things we're intentional about is keeping it somewhat eclectic. I believe was the word that was on the tip of your tongue when we were talking about this, because we want the freedom to be responsive to what the population is being subjected to, and so this is our guest tonight. It represents a topic that you love to talk about, overdating. So I can't wait for us to get into that as well.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into that. We actually have someone wanted to say hi to Sharice from Virginia. Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We have Deborah from Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, Deborah.
Child of God from Georgia.
Yes, good to see you here. And just want to tell you all, especially our regulars that always are watching Mental Health Mondays, definitely share this link on your social media. Let them know that we have a special guest tonight. We're going to introduce him again here just in a few moments. But we are talking about relationships and overdating your spouse. You're not going to want to miss that. Your friends and family who are married are not going to want to meet that. And even I say the singles don't want to miss that, because they need to know and hear the tools that they need to have when they do get into a marriage, to be able to have those tools. So definitely share this link. Want to welcome some angels.
Smangeli from South Africa.
I'm messing the name up. Thank you, Dr. Whyte. Yeah, from South Africa. Welcome. Let us know what time it is. I'm thinking it's early in the morning, but let us know what time it is there. Evelyn, welcome. Please let us know where you're watching from, but we are just thrilled to have all of you here. And I want to welcome our special guest. This is Daniel Kinoshita. I hope I said that okay, Daniel.
You got it.
All right. And he is a friend, used to be colleague, but now a friend of mine from California, from the Bay Area. We worked at the same counseling center. So that is when I was first introduced to his book, Overdate. And so we want to hear so much more about that and the concept and where all of that came from. But you know what? how how long you've become. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. I will say that. And so, how long you've been doing that, and then you can kind of just tell us how you came up with the concept for this book.
Yeah, first of all, it's great to see you. It's been a few years, and it's just seems like yesterday though. It's crazy the way how fast time goes, and obviously we're friends on Facebook, and to see your family growing and you guys in ministry, it's such a blessing. And then Dr. Whyte, it's good to meet you, Dr. Ricardo. I'm excited to hear from you as well. I had a chance to watch your guys's podcast. I think it was Mental Health Monday on stonewalling. I think that was the one too, and I thought that was great because I love Gottman. I love Gottman. So I think it's just a great way to reach people and to educate and share mental health, and of course, obviously, relationships. So it's good to be with you guys today. Thank you for having me, Atonte. Yeah. So I appreciate it. So a little bit about myself. I'm 55 years old, so I am officially a senior, I guess, and I've been married for 34 years this year, which I'm very proud of and blessed to have my wife. I call her, people know her as Patty, but I call her Trish. We got married when I was 21. My wife was 19. I was fresh out of the military, and she was 19. We met at JCPenney's at this little store, and I had just become a believer at that or really dedicated my life to Christ at a young age. And we started dating right away. And 8 months later, believe it or not, we got married. We eloped, and we had no idea what we were doing. 21 years old and 19 years old. And we got married. Yeah. Can you believe it? So 34 years we're here. Say that again, Atonte?
Yeah, I was going to say congratulations for the 34 years, but a double congratulations that she was 19 and you were 21, did you say?
I was 21, correct. She was 19. Yeah. So that was a long time ago. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey. And during that time, I really felt the call to ministry. I started working with young people and became a youth pastor, launched into ministry and with the Assemblies of God. So I was with them for about 20 years as a licensed minister and in various positions, youth pastor, associate pastor, and then as we were talking about earlier, a campus pastor for a Christian school for many years. And so enjoyed that time. But I also knew during that time I was doing a lot of pastoral counseling, and I loved it. I knew that was something that I was passionate about. So I didn't start my schooling probably till I was like 30 years old. I didn't go back to school and get my bachelor's degree until I was probably 34 years old. It was a criminal justice degree. They didn't have psychology, so I did a criminal justice degree. Then I did my master's degree, and now I'm in a doctoral program. So licensed for about 4 years now, but 20 years of pastoral counseling and but now in therapy full time in my private practice. Yeah, and I enjoy every single day I go to work. I tell my wife I'm so blessed, and every day I tell them, Dr. Whyte, I tell her, you know how much I love my job, and she's like, yeah, I know. You tell me every day. So I love helping individuals and working with couples is kind of my forte. As far as the book is concerned, Atonte, I have two grown children. I have a 32-year-old daughter. She's 33. Maybe she's 33 now, Danielle, and my son Mark, who's 28. So I think we were all sitting down at the table, and we were talking about longevity in marriage, and they were talking about my wife and I's weekly date nights. And all of a sudden, it just popped in my mind. I said, the secret to having a successful relationship is to overdate. And then we started talking about overdating, and I looked it up, and there was no such word as overdate. So I'm like, hey, this might be something kind of catchy. It kind of makes sense. And then and overdating came from learning just the basics and I don't know if Kathy McPhail or Malcolm McPhail are in here yet or not, but I put a forward in my book dedicating it to them because when we were a young couple in their church, they really preached to us, go on a date once a week with your spouse, and that'll save your marriage. And then they would go away every 3 months to get a getaway, and then we would go on all these marriage retreats. And that really at a young age, because who knows what we're doing when we're young, right? And so, but we started dating, and so that concept just popped in my head, and then so I came up with a definition. The definition of overdate is the act of dating your partner on a regular and continuous basis in order to keep the romance, adventure, and love alive daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and for the rest of your life. And so that's kind of the premise for the book, is that we date every single day. It's not just, it doesn't have to be just once a week. Although I preach once a week, it could be every day.
It sounds like that couple that encouraged you to go on a weekly date night, they were reading Signifcant, because that once or maybe they just do it on their own, but that once a week and then go away once every 3 months, once a quarter, because Gottman preaches that as well, or he teaches that, I should say. The math for the marriages that make it. So that is great. I just want to say that to our audience that you're a part of this program, that we are taking your questions and comments for Daniel or myself or Dr. Whyte. So you are part of the program to make this work. We are blessed because we're going to have Daniel not just tonight, but we're going to have him for 2 weeks. So we're going to have him next week as well, so we can get a really good understanding of this overdate concept. And you're going to want to, again, share this and let your friends and family know that what the topic is. Those who are married, those who are single, they can all benefit from this. I don't know if you can see that, Daniel, but Veronica said, what a coincidence. Her and her husband got married at 20 years old and are just celebrating their 30, 40 years as well. So they're right there with you.
Yeah. Pastor, when did you know that she was the one?
Oh my gosh! Now you're really getting me. I put that in the book. Did you get a copy? I had forwarded one to Atonte, so I want to make sure you get one.
Well,
but
don't throw me in a mess. So what happened was, is you did send it. You sent me the audio book, but I couldn't open it, and then I never got another copy. So I sent him the book link on Amazon to be able to read up on it, but I don't think he ever got an actual copy of it. So go ahead, Ricardo.
No, to answer your question, Dr. Whyte, it's when I first saw her, honestly, it was her big brown eyes. She just had these big, brown, beautiful eyes. I was like, oh my God, and I put that in the book too. It's just like head over heels. And I went home and I told my mom, I'm going to marry this girl. Of course, I'm 21 years old. I'm 20 years old. And I was just, and so my mom literally comes down to the store and she starts scouting it out. And I say, that's her over there. And at the time it was really interesting because she came from an apostolic church. So they were Jesus only church, Pentecostal apostolic church. And so I was from the Assemblies of God. So there was a little bit of challenges with that when we first started dating. But to answer your question I was just enthralled by her beauty, honestly, at first. And that's kind of my point, is because it was beauty first. And then of course she was giving me, who I feel like I married up. I'm like, who am I to be able to marry this young lady? And she said yes, right? But then and of course she was a Christian, and that was a big plus, because at that point I was kind of just learning to walk, right? I hadn't really I was growing, and she's just a wonderful person. She loves me exactly who I am. I told her I was going into the ministry. That was a big part, Dr. Whyte, was that she was going to support me in ministry as a pastor, because that's what I had asked her. I said, are you willing to do this? Because she came from a family of ministers, and that was kind of how we met. I hope that answers your question, but I can go into
it does. I think I think a love story is just so beautiful, so of course of course, I want the audience to know that you guys, you're real, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're probably going to mention this in the book, but you don't get the 34 years without some struggles of some sort. And I was just wondering, is there any struggle that you could share, you know, in this setting?
Oh,
You know, yeah, that's all.
absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, real. I don't know if my buddy Jay is in here or not. I put a shout out to him in the forward as well. And kind of one of his saying was keep it real. So we have the same between us, just keep it real. And that's, the book is really a simple read. It only takes like 30 minutes. And it was my first book. So it's like the first iteration. Hopefully I'll put out more. I will be. I have actually an e-course coming out. To answer your question, I always say if it's not broken, don't fix it. If it's working, do more of it. If it's not working, do something else. So we did a lot, Dr. Ricardo, of a lot of things that didn't work. A lot of things that didn't work. And I often, like yourself, when I do premarital counseling, is I'm very real with couples, and I say, you know, there's 1 minute you're madly in love and you're just like, I'll go to the moon and back with you and I'll die for you. And the next minute it's like, I literally have hatred in my heart towards you. That's the flesh and just the reality of relationships. And so a lot of things that we did wrong was basically in the way that we communicated to one another, you know, the way we talked to each other. It wasn't always gentle. You know, there was a lot of harshness. And like I'm sure like your audience knows, you and Atonte have been talking a lot about the four horsemen and gentle startups. And that was one of the challenges that we had early on. I also tell couples a lot of times, so that they know I'm real, I'm not just a talking head when they come into my office, is I've been married for 34 years, but it took a long road, a hard road to get here. And the first 10 to 15 years were just practicing and figuring it out, because who knows what they're doing, you know, when you're just getting married at 21 and 19. I like people to know, like you said, like keep it real, you know.
Well, I think so many couples can draw strength from your story, because you know, a lot of times in settings like these, we'll portray, whether knowingly or not, we'll portray a picture of, you know, these like kind of love stories, you know, the ones we read about in the romance, and we were almost born together. You know,
Yeah.
we finish each other's sentence, and it's like, dude, I don't know. In my 50 years, maybe I met one couple like that, you know?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, for the 99%, you got good days, you got bad days, and it's a commitment, you know?
Yes.
And so, no, I just really thank you so much, you know, for sharing, because I know with the audience, they're like, you know, we try to give them stuff they can take back to their situation. Well, I think maybe we can go into this concept then of overdating, you know? Exactly, Clint. No glamorizing. It's something that's just so unglamorous. And you know, that's where the romance really is, though. Isn't it? In that realness, in that it's something precious to be able to look a person in the face that you've been with for 34 years and say, I love you. You know? Isn't that that's not glamorous anymore, but it's so beautiful in my humble estimation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about resilience, right? Because you need a lot of resilience. We talk about like the 7-year itch, you know, it's kind of like a saying, the 7-year itch, but there's a lot of truth to it, because you have to endure, you have to have patience, you have to have discipline, you have to have maturity, and just developing tolerance in a sense for poor behavior from yourself and then from your spouse, because that's, you know, we're not, you know, as you talk about, we're not naturally good. We believe our faith says that we actually, our propensity is to be very egocentric and self-centered. So in this love relationship, that's the competing nature, our nature to want to love my partner, but then my nature that also wants to be self-centered and all about Danny. And I don't not concerned with Trish in that moment. I just want what I want. Therefore, I may throw a verbal grenade at her, and then she throws one right back at me, and so then we're just in a pile of mess. You know,
Absolutely.
and that happens to couples all the time. You know.
Well, it's like it's almost, I like to call that almost like an ambush, because it just comes out of nowhere, like you didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, I like that ambush. Yeah.
But we have a question from Deborah Hailing. Deborah, thank you for that question. And Deborah basically wants to know, is it healthy for a married couple to do everything together? And how can spending so much time together affect each individual, or does it? So, Pastor, you're our special guest this evening. So maybe why don't you take the first stab at that?
Yeah, well, thank you, Deborah. That's a great question. And so how much is too much closeness, and how much is too much distance, right? So what happens with a lot of couples when they first get together, like all of us, and like I described, head over heels for my wife. I just want to be with them every second, calling them on the phone, texting them, just dating and everything. And so we're obviously super, super close right in the beginning, right? And there's a term that we have in psychology and in marriage and family therapy. We call that, sometimes it can be enmeshment. Maybe one of the older terms that a lot of people understand is codependent. And so I believe, and this is what I teach couples all the time, a good amount of closeness is really good for couples, probably a lot of closeness, because there's a lot of people that are too distant. But we also have to have a good amount of separateness. So, the word we use is differentiation of self in psychology. I'm sure Dr. Ricardo's talked a lot about that. So I want couples to still be individuals, but I also want to make sure that they're close as well. But I don't want them to be too close, because then we're kind of up in each other's business and we're driving each other crazy. So I can't get apart from you. And that's where couples say, you're nagging me, or you're regulating me, or you're controlling me, because we're just too close. That's an enmeshed couple. But then if we get too far, and this is often what we see in couples that come into our office, is, one person is upstairs and the person's living downstairs, or they've separated. Now we have too much distance. So Deborah, the idea is to have enough closeness to keep us connected, and to have love, and to have unity, and to have peace, and then also to honor each other's individuality that God gave us, and to support each other in our individuality. That's a good way of balancing, I think, Deborah.
And Deborah, I mean, the thing I would add to that is, one of the most powerful words is attunement, because I'm sure now the question is, well, what's right for me and my partner versus another partner? Like I see some couples who they'll spend a lot of time together, but it's not hurting the relationship. They figure it out, and they have personalities that really complement one another. And then you see other couples who they are spending time apart, but their time together is meaningful as well. So you have to then study your partner and conduct the experiments to figure out what's the right balance for you. And that's why we're very comfortable encouraging that if you need professional help to help you guide you through figuring those kinds of things out, feel free. It's only your most important relationship, so it's absolutely worth that investment. But I think that's the other piece, Deborah, is, just figuring out for yourself, okay, you and your partner, all right, what is that right amount of togetherness and differentiation? And because you're looking for that sweet spot.
Yes.
Good answer, guys. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Sister Atonte.
Hey, all right. My mic just went out. And so I was like having to fix my mic situation. But you guys carried it very well. I could hear you the whole time. So
your voice sounds way better this time.
Good. I guess it was never really picking up through the mic. I feel like it was picking. Anyways, it's all better now. So I won't waste any more time. But I am glad. No, you guys did great with that answer. Is there another answer?
Well, there's another.
I just want to follow up. As you guys were talking, I was going to just follow up with what Daniel was sharing. When couples come together, I like to say that they're like this. You fall in love and you're like this. And then over time, that starts to break apart. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in between here, and you start to become like this. But when you fall in love, you're like this. And so doing the dating, especially the daily date nights a week, help to keep you like this. Even though there's things going on here, you can manage them together because you're staying like this versus like this. But I just wanted to add that to what you guys were sharing.
Well, I've heard that the neurobiological support for this is apparently in like the first 2 years, you've got oxytocin flowing, you got dopamine flowing, you got those things really flowing, and apparently after about 2 years, it starts to now peter off. So now you really get to see what you have. So
well,
give it a little time.
You said that, doctor. So I would say like overdating can be like a way to increase that oxytocin, right? Just that release, just to continually, have that pursuit going on for one another. Yeah, I love that oxytocin. Yeah, the love hormone.
Well, I'm so glad that like we're dealing with this topic because there's a discipline to marriage, is what you're really getting at, right? There's a discipline, like, and it doesn't. You don't forge that bond by happenstance. What you're really championing is there's a discipline, and sometimes you feel like going on a date, and sometimes you don't.
Right, that's exactly right.
But you still got to do it, right, Pastor Kinoshita?
Yes, you still got to do it. I mentioned, I know not everybody's a sports fan, but I mentioned, like, if you watch Stephen Curry, you get on YouTube and watch Stephen Curry's workout, the greatest shooter of all time, and you see the time and energy by repetition, over and over and over. Repetition is the mother of skill. It's the same way, like you're saying, Dr. Ricardo, is that, you have to put discipline, time, energy, studying, marriage retreats, working on your individual self. I mean, it is a constant, it's work. And a lot of people don't want to work. What the truth of the matter, I know there's plenty of times that I didn't want to work. I'm just like, I'll throw a verbal grenade at you and I'm going to go fishing or something, or I'm going to go, walk the dog, or, I don't want to deal with you right now. That's just the reality of marriage sometimes, right? Like, I think you missed, I don't know if you missed it, Atonte. I was saying that, when I do premarital counseling, we're talking about keep it real. I want to give a shout out to my buddy, Jay Still. I see he posted a question right there. We were talking about keeping it real. And I really believe, when we talk to couples, I don't want to just be a talking head, but we want to keep it real.
Right.
And I was telling Dr. Ricardo that I would tell couples all the time, premarital, and these are young couples, and they're looking at me like, oh my God, like, you're a pastor and you're a therapist. And I say, sometimes you feel like you're madly in love, and the next second, because of our nature, we're like, I can't stand you. I hate you right now. And that's the truth, right?
I didn't want to say it, but the vibe I was hearing was, I want to kill you. But I don't think he wanted to say that.
I have said that before, and I'm like, please don't do that. I don't want to have like the police come knocking at my door. Hey, the therapist right now. But that's, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, our nature is, once again, Atonte, I was telling Dr. Ricardo, our nature is not to do good. It's very self-centered and very egocentric. So it's all about Danny. Yeah. It's not about Patty. And I know I can be very, very stubborn and very self-centered when I'm not right within myself and I'm not right with the Lord,
Right. But before we go to Play Still, Candy had asked the question, can you find love over 60? And I mean, I think we probably would all agree that that's sometimes when you can find the best love. Life doesn't start till you're 60. I'm joking a little bit, but it's like by the time you're 60, you've gotten so many things out of the way. You really know who you are.
Yes.
You're comfortable in your own skin, and a lot of times your compatriots have a level of maturity as well.
Right.
So I just wanted to, so Candy, absolutely you can find love over 60. In fact, sometimes the best love you might find is over 60. So
I just want to say to that I mean, I witnessed that
with my mom and her second marriage. I mean, she was just so happy and so just at ease. And like you said, she just knew herself so much better. So she chose very, very wisely for someone that matched who she was. And they just had the most amazing relationship. So
That's
it's
awesome.
definitely possible. It's definitely possible.
Okay, now the pastor had a guest who had asked a question. Jay Steele, I think it was.
I think his name was Jay.
Jay. All right,
Yeah.
and Jay asked the questions. What type of counseling do you offer for startup couples? And do you suggest pre-marriage counseling when you meet new clients seeking marriage? What are your thoughts, Pastor?
I'm going to let you guys answer that because Jay is my buddy. So I talk to him quite often. He's the one I was referring to that said keep it real. So let one of you guys answer that question.
So I can say it for myself, Jay, definitely. And I offer, hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're loud and clear. You're good. You're good.
Okay, good. So yes, Jay, I definitely offer premarital counseling to my couples. And I think that it's so very important. And I always remind them, because I have to be honest, like my husband and I, we've been married for 26 years and we went to 3 different couples before we got married, but they weren't licensed therapists. So I think it's great to talk to couples that have been married for years and years. You can definitely glean great information from them. But I think it's really important to go and see like a licensed therapist that can really help you figure some things out. But I think it's even more important because after you've already gotten engaged and set a date, like even if you and the therapist together kind of discover some things that you find that, well, maybe we're not the best match together. By that time, it's really difficult to break that off. That would take an extreme amount of maturity to be able to do that. So I think it's even better to go, if you're dating someone and you think like, man, I think I want to get engaged, or I think I might want to be married with them, I think that's the best time to go to pre-marriage counseling, like before you pre-engagement. I said pre, but I meant pre-engagement counseling.
Don't you love that when people come in and the wedding's booked, all the flights are, they've
already put the deposit down.
And it's like, well, we just wanted some, premarital counseling. Like, oh yeah, that no pressure though, right?
Right.
I can't tell you how beautiful it is to make the determination that, you know what, we're not a fit, like like that's not even a bad thing, as opposed to kids later, financial, intertwinement, and just it is such a wonderful thing to determine beforehand, we're not a fit, no hard feelings, but we're just not a fit. That doesn't mean we can't be friends, but we're just not. That is not a bad thing. I promise you. I like the way
you said that, Dr. Ricardo. I don't think I've ever heard it said like that. Such a wonderful thing to find out that we're not a fit. But how true is that, right? Oh my God! Like that would save us. Oh man, it would save so much time, energy, finances to later on just try to put this square peg in a round hole, right?
Kids. But I am very, very curious, Pastor. What do you offer premarital, counseling? And what is your plan for like what services do you offer?
Yeah, so I use. I'm sure you're familiar with Prepare and Enrich. So are you guys familiar with Prepare and Enrich assessment materials? Yeah, it's a great tool where you can. When the couple comes in, I can give them an assessment, and they both answer it independently, and then they'll take all the data together, and they'll show you where you're compatible as far as in romance, finances, intimacy, family of origin, and it's a great tool. But like you said, the challenge with premarital counseling is, I wish, like what Atonte was saying, that couples would come in and they're like going to 2 or 3 different counselors or trying to find the right one or doing it over a longer period of time. But unfortunately, it's more along the lines, Dr. Ricardo, what you're saying. They're dropping in like a month before, and I'll get referrals from pastors from other churches, and they're sending them to me, the wedding's a month out. So there's not a lot of time. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take that prepare and enrich assessment, and it'll just give me a list of all the different topics. And I'll say, let's talk about the challenges that are standing out, the talking points that are really challenging for you guys. And let's see if we can at least tackle those right now. And then what I'll encourage them, because most of the time they're on that trajectory. They have a date, they have the venue, and they'll say, like, afterwards, keep coming back. So this can be a follow-up, an ongoing, an ongoing assessment, an ongoing giving you more tools and more coaching. But like you're saying, Dr. Ricardo, unfortunately, couples are coming in and they're not coming in a year out. I wish they were.
Yeah, the focus is more the wedding than the marriage.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. The actual,
the wedding, yeah. Atonte, you
no. Thank you for providing those, providing that clarity. And now we have my husband doesn't bring me flowers like other men, but he'll spend days building and planting flower beds for me. Veronica, that was romantic, right? That was powerful.
Okay.
I believe love is in everyday care and nurturing. And do you think this is normal? Hey man, can I use that illustration, Veronica?
That's beautiful.
That was what I would call gangster. As somebody that was gangster, man. Oh my goodness, Veronica.
Beautiful.
That was beautiful. I'm going to read that again. That was so powerful. My husband doesn't bring flowers like other men, but he'll spend days building and planting flower beds for me. I believe love is everything.
That's beautiful, Veronica.
That's hot,
beautiful. And
man.
you said, is that normal? Unfortunately, it's not as normal as it should be. It should be normal, but it's not as normal as it should be. If it was normal, if it was the majority of marriages, you probably wouldn't need LMFTs. You wouldn't need therapists, marriage therapists. But that's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely don't take that for granted.
That was beautiful. But Mr. Roderick, if you're listening, after you've gone through all that trouble, pick the girl some flowers, please.
This is another question. Here's another question. It says, so should you date for at least 2 years before getting married?
And this is in response to that when I mentioned that the hormones have you on a high, the dopamine, the oxytocin, even like serotonin, it's just on a high. And so it kind of peters out after 2 years. Well, that could be an argument to giving your assessment the time. But part of why we will always warn you, we're not your mental health practitioners. And you really have to take some of these questions to a therapeutic setting is, what if a person was terminal, right? Like now do they have to wait for 2 years? So there are different situations for different people. And so like you have to now, with the counsel of your mental health team, kind of factor in what it is that we're mentioning, but every situation is different. But that said, the guiding principle is it's so important to give things time. Besides the hormones just having you on a high and really and truly kind of interfering with your ability to assess objectively, you just need time sometimes for people to show who they really are. As men and women, people have a marvelous ability to put on a show and kind of hide who it is they really are. And so that's why sometimes you really just have to give it time, because with time, people are going to reveal who they are. So now, is that 2 years? Is that 3? Now that can vary. And there is such a thing as waiting too long also.
Yes.
What are your thoughts though? I that's my spiel.
Well,
I agree. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Atonte.
Well, okay. Well, no, I definitely agree with what you said, Dr. Whyte. And, I give our example, my husband and I's example, and I say we were an outlier, that the way that I believed God was leading us is not the traditional way that that should be or works for most people. I mean, I think we got engaged after 2.5 months. Now that is an outlier, meaning that is not for everyone. That is not, I tell my kids that too, like that doesn't, but we had, I don't know. It's just, we had some different set of circumstances and God knew where we both were. And he just brought that together. And I can say that it's been a blessing, but I can also say that we grew within this 26 years, which all marriages do. People do grow within their marriage. And I can say I'm more deeply in love with him now than I was 26 years ago. And we've matured so much and we have learned so much on how to be happily married that I can say 26 years now, I'm much more happily married more married now than I was in the first probably 5 years, because we were learning so much about each other. But I think it's very good to take that time. Does it have to be 2 years? It doesn't have to be 2 years. There's no strict timeline, but you should deeply know who you are marrying and take that time to get to know each other.
Did you want to comment, Pastor? Or?
No, I agree with both of you. I think we're all cruising along the same pathway.
For myself, I just had a level of immaturity and like just self-centeredness. I don't want to blame it on the profession, but like going through med school was just such of an ordeal. Like you really divert a lot of resources to yourself. And so you can get into the habit of doing that. And before you know it, you're being neglectful. And so I definitely had to grow quite a bit to learn to be more attentive, learn to be more other focused. So I think that time, oh my goodness, like I think if we would give ourselves a little bit more time and take it seriously and make the investments in time and resources necessary to hone these skills. We do not leave the womb knowing these skills. There are some things that are so counterintuitive, counterintuitive.
Right.
Being vulnerable is not easy. You have to learn how to be vulnerable. And I mean, so these are some of the things that happened in a therapist's office that you can be taught some of the skills that will help you in your relationship. And like I said, as I mentioned, that dopamine, wave, you feel like you don't need it or like you won't need it, not understanding that that's going to wane after a while. And like, for example, Pastor, you mentioned that she's beautiful, but she's not the last beautiful person you've met, I'm sure, in your life, and so, and that can sometimes ambush people because they're like, well, I find that there are other people that are attractive, and now what do I do with that? And so I'm amazed at the discipline that goes into building longevity and quality in your relationship. So time is a big thing to talk about.
And expectations. I think the expectations that people have from, like you're talking about, that first love at first sight, and then you forget about the expectations. What are her expectations? What are his expectations? And then when you fail to meet those expectations, what do you do with that? So I think, that's where the time piece and, the good news is now we have a lot of tools and science now, especially with the Gottmans, what you both talk about a lot, and I utilize it too, is, we have a plumb line that we can go back to and say, these are the things that we should work on before we take that dive so that we're not blindsided. I thought, I thought you knew how to do your own laundry. I thought I didn't know I was going to have to do your laundry, or I thought, or taking out the trash, or, what are, this is the way I was raised and that was the way you were raised, or who does the cooking, who does the cleaning. It's amazing how many people get divorced over just little arguments like who takes out the trash. they're in fight. They put each other in fight or flight over simple things like that. So expectations, I think 2 years, whether it's a year, whether it's 6 months, is, just really, knowing what you're looking for, what your expectations are, and can my partner meet those expectations? And if they can't, they need to be brutally honest with me. And then that's what you were talking about, Dr. Ricardo. Wouldn't it be nice if we, I think you used the word wonderful feeling, that I knew that, oh, you wanted me to take out the trash the whole time, and there's no way I'm going to take out the trash, so we're not going to get married.
Right.
It's just I guess where I'm coming from is I cannot tell you what. So obviously I'm at a community hospital here in San Bernardino, and I can't tell you how many couples or how many individuals will come in sometimes with a suicide attempt after a suicide attempt because a relationship broke up.
Yeah.
And it's like, and now you're sitting there as a married person and you're thinking, like, I promise you there are some worse things than a relationship dissolving. Now, obviously, I can get, sometimes there's betrayal and all these other kind of things, which can, of course, magnify the pain. But coming to a conclusion and a resolution that this person is not for me, or it not working out, how much better that it happens now, as opposed to 3 kids later, as opposed to families, connected, as opposed to careers and geography, and it's not like I'm, but it's not like I'm disregarding people who might be going through those very things, sincerest sympathies to you. But with regard to young people, this is not the reason to harm yourself, and this is not the reason to feel like all is lost. And keep in mind, on the other side of those experiences can often be the love of your life.
That's right.
If you hang in there, if you do the work. So this is just a perspective from the other side, where we see tons of people whose relationship is unraveling at a time where they're like, man, I could have spared myself so much more pain prior to making this investment in terms of getting married, so to speak.
So true.
I want to just, we're almost at the end of our hour. I want you to talk a little bit more about your book, and we're going to highlight and let people know where they can get it, and to let you guys know that Daniel is coming back next week, and we're going to take a deeper dive into his book for sure. But your chapter 1 is Overdate, the art of overdating. Can you introduce us to that concept?
Yes. The art of overdating really kind of started with couples coming into my office, and we would talk about just one simple thing. We were talking about like keeping it real earlier, Dr. Ricardo. And I would ask people, when's the last time you've been out on a date with your partner? And you'd be surprised to hear some people would say, like, it's been 3 months. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. And then I've had people say it's been 30 years.
Wow.
It's been 30 years since I dated. And then I would just get into this dialogue with, what's happening with that. I had one couple or one gentleman say, yeah, the last therapist I saw, they said they didn't even believe in dating. You don't even believe in dating. Like,
Wow.
I said, so let's talk about this. It's like, I'm talking, let's just say Susie and Johnny, and like, tell me, like, how do you expect to have a good, thriving relationships if you're not connecting together? And they just look at me and they say, well, we just stopped doing it. And I said, and then I kind of take them down this trail, and we just start having an honest conversation. And this is kind of where the whole idea of, people overwork, they overspend, they overdrink, but they don't overdate their spouse. They don't even take that little bit of time to spend with their spouse. I mean, it only takes 2 hours, 3 hours. And, these people are working 60 hours a week and they haven't connected in years. So I introduced this one simple thing, Susie, Johnny, can you spend a half a day and just go out on a date? just go on a 1 date. Can you, if that's all you can do between now and our next session, do that. My ultimate goal is that you guys would reconnect and you would fall back in love and do the things that you did when you first fell in love. And that's kind of the whole idea, is like, because when we first fell in love, what, like we started from today, is like, yeah, we were spending enormous amounts of time. We couldn't keep our hands off of each other. Is it going to be like that all the time? Like Dr. Ricardo was referring to the oxytocin. Not all the time, and not all of us have that much time, because we're dealing with couples that are, at different stages. They're in their 20s or 30s. For us, we may have a little bit more time because we've been around a little bit more. So, and like I told you before, I have a lot of time on my hand right now, so it's really nice. I feel like we're dating every single day. That's why I kind of try to practice what I preach. But if I can get them to get the concept of just dating once a week when they didn't do it, I'll like that. This will save your marriage. I mean, I know that's a pretty lofty goal. This will save your marriage if you start connecting, because there's a lot of other moving parts, as we assess them. But let's get you guys to start dating again. And so, once again, people overwork, they overspend, they overdrink, they do a whole lot of other things, but they don't spend time to date their spouse.
Now, Pastor, when they go on this date, they should take their cell phones, right? And it's okay if their faces are buried in the cell phone. Like what are some of the core principles that guide a date?
Yeah, it's interesting you say cell phones, because I have a chapter. It's called "I just text to say I love you," and how there's been studies on how we can use technology actually to encourage our relationships. But unfortunately, that's what you see, right? You go out to a restaurant, you see couples there, and they're just texting, right? They're not connecting. So, one of the things is say this is individual time for you guys to reconnect. Put the multimedia away, sit down and have a real conversation. This kind of goes into like a check-in too. I mean, I'm kind of getting ahead, because one of the chapters in my book is checking in. So, and Gottman, really preaches, check-ins, right? Ritual check-ins with each other. So, but the date itself is just to get them to connect, do the things that you did from the beginning. Because a lot of times when they first start, they're so far apart emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. They're so far apart in all those domains. I just initially want them to come together physically and try to reenact in a lot of way. Maybe we'll call it a corrective experience, right? Coming back and go on a date to your, was it the boardwalk, Santa Cruz Beach boardwalk, or Monterey, somewhere where you first connected. And then after that, we'll go deeper into, giving them some tools but I want to get them out of the house and away from the kids and away from work and away from busyness of life. Yeah, stressors. And it's hard, because I often tell couples all the time when they come back in, so are you guys keeping your date night? And they'll go, well, this and that. And then I'll go, well, you know what? You're just burning up $100 bills. You're burning up $100. I literally say that. I got that from a mentor of mine. You're just, I'm going to have to fire you because I can't ethically take your money. You're burning up $100.
I love it, Daniel. I love it that you tell them that, because it's true. It's true, because you're sitting here trying to work with them and encourage them what to do, and they're not doing it. It's like, you're not God, right? You're not a miracle worker. They have to put in the work. The real work is once they leave the office. That's when the real work happens. And so the real work is when they start going on those dates. So I love that you share that with them.
Yeah, it's funny because I always say that too. It's another one of my saying is saying, I feel I'm pretty confident that I'm a competent marriage and family therapist, but I don't walk on water, So some of the things that you're bringing in here, Susie and Johnny, we're throwing up a Hail Mary. I kind of say that up front. This is a Hail Mary because of, we have, addiction, abuse, and adultery, the AAAs. But if you'll come in here and just give the process a chance, and let's just start little, and that's a date. That's what we can do, even if it's sitting in a movie theater watching a movie, because, and this, some of people are coming in pretty dire straits. There's There's a lot of things that are going on. And then sometimes, honestly, a date, and, sometimes you can't even, a date isn't, what's the word? It's not prescribed at that time because they're not even there, sometimes at that point. It just depends on the situation. But overdating, basically, to introduce that chapter, I kind of give some metaphors, and there's some stories in there, some anonymous stories about couples that, that aren't doing the things that they used to do when they first fell in love. And I really try to encourage let's go back. Let's try to recapture what we did in the beginning, why you first fell in love with Susie, right? Or Johnny, right? And once we capture, we have something to work with,
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that, and I know people are thinking like, oh, we don't have, their schedules or their life is so, maybe their schedules are so different. And I always tell, couples that have like kind of different schedules or kind of not the traditional schedules, like with their work too, they can be creative, like, especially during COVID. I remember I had this couple who they worked from home, but it couldn't be a date night. It was a date mid-morning, meaning they had this break that they both had together, and they lived in an area where they could go on a hike. And so they could go like on an hour-and-a-half hike and just kind of spend some time together, go on a long walk. And that was like their weekly date time at that time, because that's what their schedules allowed them to do. And so I was just using that as an example to be creative and go do the things that work for you. Like, what me and my husband do may not be what you and your husband or your wife like to do. So you definitely just find what works for you for these date nights.
That's
so
right.
Don't be discouraged. Well, Daniel, we want to let them know, because first of all, again, he's coming back because we had such great discussion between the three of us and you and your questions about, marriage and all the different questions and comments that you had, that we've only just barely scratched the surface of Daniel's book, but we're going to go deeper, and he's going to come back next week. So definitely be right back here for Mental Health Monday. Bring some friends and some family with you, because any married people, they need to hear this. So anybody that's married needs to hear this. So tell everybody and the singles too. So that's really everybody Bring them back here to Mental Health Monday with you next week. But just in case you guys want to get the book so that you can already start reading and be prepared for next week, we want to let you know how to do that. So Daniel, what's the best way for them to be able to find your book, Overdate?
Just go on Amazon and search Overdate, and it'll come up on there. I think it's like $12.99, and just encourage people. It's really easy read. It's so easy. It's like, it was first book I wrote. So 30-minute read, and there's some principles in there that are really easy to put into practice. And I hope it's a blessing to y'all.
Did I hear something about an audio version as well?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I don't know what happened, but there is not an audio version right now. There's an ebook. That's what I tried to send to you, Atonte. So I'm going to try
ebook.
And if I can get Dr. Ricardo's email address, and I'll try to send it both to you guys. I'd actually rather send you guys the actual hard copy. So I'll do that for you guys. So
but I can't wait to get my copy, because this sounds amazing. And I can't wait to share this with my audiences, because I just think this is just so beautiful. Only thing I want to add is, like, for those of you that say, hey, I can't even get in the room with this person yet, don't forget about 10 minutes, like 10 minutes of intimate time, like where, you know what, this is non-sexual, and it's non-sexual, but it's no distractions, just 10 minutes, no distractions. And that can be a nice build up to get you to, all right, now we can expand it. Let's get to the date. But you don't have to date, you get to date. Get to date. So I can't wait to continue our discussion. I'm looking forward to my copy of the book.
Get your copy. And get your copy out there. I just want to answer this question though, because it's a great question. Whose responsibility is it to establish date night? And I just want to say this. I tell you can answer, Daniel, and Dr. Whyte, you can answer too. But I tell my couples to switch it up. So the wife does it one week, and then it's the husband's the next week. And so they alternate. And that way they're planning and they get into their planning. So That's what I tell them, but do whatever works for you and your spouse. But go ahead, you guys. Just
We'll
take
give
a
Daniel the last word. We made it a contest. We made it a competition.
Who could do better?
Which was so fun because I would slaughter her. It was so fun. But we made it a contest, and it was really fun to see who could outdo each other, who found the spot that we didn't know anything about. I remember blindfolding her, bringing her back to the apartment, and we made it fun. What are your thoughts, Pastor?
Yeah, I think a combination of both of those, and making a list of all the things that maybe I want to do and my wife Patty wants to do, and then rotating them, and because so many times it gets so unbalanced, especially when there's hierarchy issues. So I think a combination of all those things, flip-flopping, making a list, competing, like, hey, how can I outdo you? I think that's cool. I think a combination of all those things.
Love it. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and to be creative and how you and your spouse are going to do it. But I'm glad you're already thinking like, okay, how are we going to do this? That is great. That means that this program inspired you to start thinking differently, to be able to create date nights for you and your spouse. So again, we're going to be doing part 2 next week. That's 7 p.m. Central right here on Living Manna Church YouTube channel. So definitely be back. Bring all your people, because everybody needs to hear this. The married couples, the singles, they need what it's like to overdate your spouse. And that's what's needed. As Daniel says, we overdo so many things, but this is the most important thing, what we're doing in our marriage. So looking forward to seeing you guys next week, and can't wait to see what part 2 is going to bring and that information that it's going to bring to all of you. So be blessed, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. Pleasure meeting you, Pastor Daniel.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Ricardo. Good to see you.